Welcome to the AI Brief from the YPO Technology Network. I'm Stephen Forte. Something in this week's numbers does not add up, and once you see it, you will not be able to unsee it. Companies are laying people off and blaming artificial intelligence, tens of thousands of them, at some of the most profitable firms on earth. And in the very same week, the people who build the AI published their own evidence that the technology cannot yet do most of the work those jobs actually involved. Here's what I mean. Why that gap matters more than either headline on its own and what I would do with my own workforce before I trusted a single layoff projection. Here's the lens for today. The pink slips are arriving ahead of the product. The layoffs are running faster than the technology can back them up. And that gap is where the next round of very expensive mistakes is going to happen. Start with the cuts, because they are real and they are accelerating. This week, British American Tobacco, the tobacco giant behind Lucky Strike and Camel, said it is cutting 9,000 roles, about 5,500 directly, and another 3,500 handed to the consulting firm Accenture, chasing 600 million pounds in savings, with the chief executive pointing directly at new technology capabilities. That same week, Cisco filed to cut jobs in California. And here is the part that should stop you cold. While posting record quarterly revenue of $15.8 billion, with net income up 35%. Read that twice. Record revenue, rising profit. Cutting anyway and naming AI investment as the priority. This follows Oracle, whose own regulatory filing blamed AI for 21,000 cuts. Across 2026, 56% of layoffs now name AI or automation as a cause. And notice what this is not. It is not a recession. Rates are steady, demand is holding, and Cisco just printed a record quarter. These are not companies cutting because business is bad. They are companies cutting because they have been told a machine can now do the work, and they are acting on that promise well before anyone has audited whether it is actually true. That is the story everyone is telling. Now, here is the story nobody is setting down right next to it. The same week those pink slips went out, OpenAI, not a critic, the maker of ChatGPT itself, released a benchmark called GeneBench-Pro. It tests whether the best AI models can solve realistic, messy, expert problems, the kind of judgment work you pay professionals real money for. OpenAI's own flagship model passed 31.5% of them. The strongest model from any lab passed 16. Sit with that. By the toolmaker's own scorecard, the technology fails roughly 2 out of every 3 real expert tasks. That is not a reason to ignore AI. It is a reason to be very careful about which jobs you have quietly decided it already replaced. And if you doubt that getting AI to actually work is the hard part, look at what Amazon just did with its own money. AWS committed $1 billion to a new unit whose entire purpose is to send its own engineers in pods of 5 and 6 to physically embed inside customer companies for 6-week sprints because those customers cannot get AI systems into production on their own. Think about what that spend quietly admits. The largest cloud provider on earth surveyed the market and concluded the bottleneck is not the model. The bottleneck is that real companies cannot make this stuff work. You do not spend $1 billion hand-delivering engineers to a technology that installs itself. There is a name for the trap. A demo is not a deployment. In a demo, someone picked the inputs, cleaned the data, and framed the question just so. Your business is the opposite of a demo. It is messy, half-documented, and riddled with exceptions, and that is exactly the terrain where the GeneBench numbers fall apart. The distance between a dazzling pilot and a system your company can actually run on is measured in quarters, not weeks. Amazon just put a price on that distance, and the price was $1 billion. Give the labs genuine credit here, and I mean it. The capability is advancing fast. A year ago, these systems could not attempt the GeneBench problems at all. This is not a story about AI being fake or overhyped into oblivion. It is a story about timing. The layoffs assume a finish line the technology simply has not crossed yet. So what happens when you cut ahead of the capability? We already have the answer, and it comes from the firm your board quotes most. Gartner studied the companies making the deepest AI-driven cuts and found they showed no improvement in financial returns, none. And it projects that 50% of the organizations planning major AI-driven workforce reductions will abandon those plans by 2027, having missed their targets. Half. And the most telling signal of the week, the AI industry itself, Amazon, OpenAI, Anthropic, Microsoft, quietly put $500 million into a nonprofit called Raise Use to retrain the very workers their technology is displacing. When the people who lit the match show up holding a fire hose, believe two things. The fire is real, and they are not certain they can put it out. Here is my read. The market is pricing AI as if the substitution already happened. It has not. What has actually happened is that we are investing in AI became the most acceptable sentence a chief executive can say on an earnings call to explain a cut they wanted to make anyway. Some of those cuts are genuinely wise. Many of them are a bet that a technology failing 2/3 of expert tasks, one that Amazon has to hand install, will quietly cover the work of the people walking out the door. That bet comes due in about 18 months, and Gartner has already told you how half of them end. Picture a 300-person regional bank that cut a fifth of its loan processing staff in the spring on a vendor's promise that an AI agent would carry the volume by summer. Summer is here. The agent handles the clean applications beautifully and quietly fumbles the messy ones, the exact files that needed a human's judgment. And there is no longer a team deep enough to catch it. That is not a hypothetical I invented for effect. That is the precise shape of the reversal Gartner is counting. If I were sitting in your seat this quarter, I would do three things, and none of them is stop using AI. First, cut on productivity you have measured, not productivity you have been promised. If a role is truly automatable, you will see it in the output before you see it in the org chart. Wait for the proof. Second, if one of your AI pilots has stalled, do not read that as a people problem and start trimming. Amazon just bet $1 billion that a stalled pilot is a deployment problem, not a headcount one. Fix the deployment before you cut the team. Third, whatever you automate, keep the judgment layer, the people who catch the third of the work the model gets wrong. You can buy a very confident typewriter. You still need someone who can read. 3 weeks, one pattern. Monday, your clients grading you and criminals cloning you. Tuesday, the whole AI supply chain quietly shifting to China. Yesterday, the agents you are racing to deploy leaking data and running up the bill. And today, the jobs you are cutting for a technology that, by its own maker's numbers, is not yet ready to do them. The thread through every one of those is the same. We are all acting on AI faster than AI is ready to be acted on. And the distance between the two is exactly where the risk lives. You can automate a task tomorrow. You cannot yet automate the judgment that notices when the task went wrong. Be very sure which one you are laying off. That is the YPO Tech Network AI brief for Thursday, July 2nd. I am Stephen Forte. If this was useful, send it to a fellow member. I will be back Friday with more. Until then, stay sharp.